Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be touching on how you can best go about winning disputes as a seller in your PayPal business account. And I have a number of different articles that I'm going to touch on and highlight some different points. But if you'd like to read through these articles in their entirety, I'll have links posted down in the description. Your best case scenario is beyond just being in the right in terms of the dispute at hand. If the buyer files this claim in the dispute or claim process, this is going to be your best case scenario because this process is owned and decided on by PayPal, and PayPal has an interest to make the correct decision because both the buyer and seller are users of the PayPal platform, so they want to keep both sides of that situation happy. Whereas if you get a chargeback or a bank reversal, these are going to be more difficult to win. They often also take longer, and these are going to be decided on by the debit or credit card company or the bank, and these have more of a vested interest to keep the buyer happy because that's the customer to those companies, whereas they don't have as much of an incentive to try to make the seller happy and content with what decision they end up making. But it is also worth pointing out that PayPal does have seller protection, and this is just something that comes at no additional charge if you have a PayPal business account, and this is going to protect sellers on unauthorized transactions. And this is when a buyer claims that they didn't authorize a payment. As a seller, you are going to be protected in these instances, as well as items not received. This is when a buyer claims that they never received an item they purchased. As long as you have the tracking information and confirmation of that delivery on these goods, you'll be protected in those situations as well. And of course, these disputes, they're going to be going through the Resolution Center. I'll link the Resolution Center down in the description. As the seller, it's a best practice to respond to these disputes as quickly as possible and with as much accurate information as you can. Whatever information PayPal is looking for to solve these disputes, be sure to answer their questions fully, promptly, and with accurate information. And it's also worth noting that you can help prevent these disputes by having really good communication with your buyers. Start by providing detailed, accurate descriptions of items for sale, including pictures from multiple angles. Really important that whatever item is being purchased here, that you do a really good job of describing exactly what it is so that the buyer isn't disappointed when they receive it. When an item is purchased, ship it out promptly and provide tracking information so that the buyer is able to see exactly what step in the process this is. If you take a really long time to send items out, it might make the buyer wonder what's going on, and they might file a dispute at that point if things are taking longer than they typically expect when they're buying things online. Post contact information, so it's really straightforward and easy for a buyer to know when your working hours are, what the response time frame is going to be, maybe even a toll-free number that they can get a hold of you with instead of just having an email address that they can also get in touch with you. Also, be sure that your refund and return policy are in a place where a customer is able to see it. And if a customer ever contacts you, be professional, helpful, courteous. Try to understand where your buyer is coming from and work together to try to meet with a solution that works best for everyone. The better you are at highlighting these things and doing them consistently, the better off you're going to be in terms of your buyers knowing exactly what they can expect from you, and they will be less likely to file disputes because of this. If you can't come to a conclusion that satisfies both parties on a dispute, then these can escalate to a claim for things such as items not received, the item being significantly not as described, or unauthorized transactions. And here's an additional article that I just want to run through and touch on some different things. So some tips for successful communication with customers. Presume good faith. Begin the conversation with an open mind and listen to what the buyer has to say before making any assumptions. Many problems result from miscommunication and simple human error. Also be constructive. Make it clear to your buyer that you want to find a resolution, and your customer will usually reciprocate this. This early show of mutual respect should make the rest of the conversation more productive when you're trying to find that solution. Stay focused on solutions. If your patience is wearing thin, resist the temptation to give the customer a piece of your mind, because when that happens, it only makes things harder for you to come to an agreement in the end. And try to think long term with this. Not every battle is worth fighting. If you give the buyer a break today, you may open the door to do more business opportunities with them tomorrow. Now, if you do feel like you're in a position where they're likely scamming you, then maybe you don't want more of their business opportunities in the future. But you'll be able to probably tell this, especially if you have a long history of selling and dealing with buyers, when buyers are either acting in good faith or not. And try to preempt disputes. We went over this a bit earlier with the things that you can do to try to make it so that the buyer knows exactly what to expect through the purchasing process and what they're getting. And in the Resolution Center, it actually allows you to enter messages that all of your buyers will see before they can open a dispute. An example of this would be something like a message that says, all shipments out of my location are currently delayed due to blizzard. So maybe that's the issue that they're coming to dispute, is a shipping problem And just being open and upfront with your customers and explaining why things might be happening before they file a dispute could solve a lot of the issues that you might run into. So guys, I'm going to link a few articles down in the description so that you can go over all this information for yourself. If I read through all of these articles, we'd be here for the better part of an hour. It kind of just walks you through the resolution process step by step and what should be expected out of you, best practices, and how you would go about trying to win these. And it is also worth noting that there is seller protection where PayPal is going to cover things like unauthorized transactions as well as items not received, as long as you provide the appropriate information and do your best to answer any questions that PayPal has and give them any information that they're going to need to solve these issues. And a lot of what I touched on in this video is going to be in terms of the dispute claim process. This is where PayPal is kind of the intermediary where they're going to gather the information from both sides and then make a decision on what they think is going to best apply to that situation. And they're going to be less biased as opposed to when you're dealing with a chargeback or a bank reversal, where the entity that's making those decisions has more of an incentive to make the buyer happy, given that the buyer is going to be the customers of those companies. So it's going to be tougher to deal with those situations. Try your best to do the best practices and whatever you can so that the buyer knows what they're going to expect throughout a purchase. And if you follow these, you're going to be dealing with a lot less issues over the course of time. So be sure to put in that work up front so that you don't have as many of these disputes, claims, chargebacks, etc. that you're going to have to work your way through. And they can really take up a lot of your time and they're not fun to go through. So I hope this video was helpful. Again, you can find links to these articles down in the description. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Consider subscribing and I'll catch you back here next time.